We need
So
somebody who knows
who have you found for us?
Well, I always send the bad signal out to my guy, Brenden Nunes, whenever I need anything rational, whenever I need to know if I'm tripping or if maybe I'm right on something and everybody else is wrong. Brendan's usually my North Star in terms of figuring out if I'm crazy or not.
From the King's Herald, Brenden Nunes. Brenden, thank you for your time. Can we start by asking you what you make of the news that John Collins looks like he's on his way to Utah for virtually nothing? A lot of Kings fans are wondering why the Kings didn't make a move to get John Collins if it wasn't going to cost anything.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris and Whitey. I don't know about being a voice of reason, but I feel like it's usually pretty easy to tell that Chris is wrong, so I never mind telling him that one.
Wow. Shots fired.
Come on.
Chris knows I appreciate him, and he does good work. I mean, it's definitely surprising, the John Collins to Utah deal. I think, obviously the evaluation and value that Atlanta got back was pretty underwhelming. It's pretty much just a salary dump when you're getting Rudy Gay, who, maybe can give you some minutes here and there, I guess. But you're certainly not a guy that you want to rely on when it comes to postseason rotation or that's changing anything. And then a second-round pick. It's definitely just getting off money. And, they've been in a tough salary spot and don't even have the high-level record to really show for it. And then I think another intriguing aspect is looking at it from the other end, where Utah has a lot of bigs they're working with now, with Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen. They just drafted Taylor Hendricks, who is somebody that I'm really high on. But Lauri Markkanen might find himself in another spot where he's asked to get played small forward.
Oh my goodness, that would be crazy. I mean, that would be a massive front line with those three. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing over there in Utah. I'm curious, Brenden, because you and I talk a lot, especially leading up into that draft.
By the way, he just said you're always wrong. Are you going to respond to that? Or
no, I mean, he doesn't know what he's
okay.
I know I was hyping him up before, but
yeah. I should stay out of it. I just couldn't help but notice.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I feel like I have a better track record than Brenden.
Okay,
like I said, I just like to use him as a soundboard just to make sure I'm not crazy.
Sure. We'll fact check that later.
Okay. Let's not. I just know that you were, you weren't massive on Colby Jones, but you were a big fan of him coming into this draft. What do you think about the Kings using getting him at 34 and obviously having to move up to get him? But what do you think about Colby Jones's addition to this team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously somebody that they liked if they were willing to move up from 38 to 34. I kind of think of him as a Donte DiVincenzo, who was a little bit polarizing at his time, and obviously nobody's going to be exactly identical to somebody else, but just as a guy that does a little bit of everything. I think that he's somebody that can finish plays at all three levels. The three-point shot is really encouraging that we saw this year at 37.8%, his junior year at Xavier. That's 43% on catch and shoot, but you go back like sophomore year, 32%, freshman year, 34%. So I think the 3-point shot there's reason for optimism, but it's worth noting that in years prior, and the free throw percentage isn't great either, but that in years prior, there were some question marks there. But if that 3-point shot goes down at the level it did this year, I think there's a 3-level finisher, a guy that can shoot the 3 ball. He's got a great floater. His touch around the rim is really impressive. And just all those connecting pieces that makes me think of that Donte DiVincenzo, a good playmaker who can play on or off the ball, a rebounder on both sides, a guy who, 6'4.5" without shoes. So say about 6'6" we're talking about here with shoes on, but a 6'8" wingspan, willing to be physical and have some versatility where, Monty McNair after the draft, when I got to ask him about Colby a little, is saying, I think he's versatile. He probably can't switch on to 5s, but he's pretty versatile, which in my mind, if he's saying he can't switch on to 5s, that means he thinks he can switch on to 1 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
And 4s might be a little bit kind, but I think that 1 to 3 is reasonable here. And a guy that just, can play both on and off the ball on both sides of the floor.
Brenden Nunes from the King's Herald with us, and I have a 2-parter for you, Brenden. I apologize. But 1, what can you tell us about where the Kings are with Sasha? 2, and more importantly, I think Colby Jones and Slauson are flying in today. What's the one thing you would tell them at the airport? Hey, you make sure you go see this. Make sure you don't miss this at Sacramento International Airport. Would it be the rabbit, or which way are you going there?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think the Rabbit's like a great site, but it is just part of the city. Like, you have to experience it, and you have to just look at it once and wonder to yourself why it exists.
Yeah.
So I do think that it is an important part of their introduction to
Yes.
Sacramento, and especially the airport. So
Well said. Well said.
it's somehow part of the experience. And I got lost in the Rabbit. What was the first?
Sasha. I'm sorry.
Sasha.
Yeah. Where are we with Sasha as far as you know?
Yes. I don't have any like new information on it, but obviously they're extremely big on Sasha and what he can provide, and he has to factor into some of this financial situation that we're talking about in the offseason and cap space here. But my understanding is his Olympiacos offer was somewhere around $2 million a year, and you do have to factor in California taxes coming out and all in this as well. I saw somebody had said that he needs to net more than what that deal would be. And I don't know exactly that that's 100% true, but I think there's logic there that makes sense to me. And I think he's a guy that, you're pulling him away from being a star on what might have been the best non-NBA team in the world. So it will take a good offer for him to come over in a decent role. I think he fits extremely well. Another guy that just finishes plays. I mean, Colby Jones is at a lesser level. Sasha finishes plays at an extremely high level from all three levels of the floor. So obviously Sacramento really highly values him. It's just going to be about what is the number they're willing to pay, because you got to talk them out of leaving a pretty good situation.
How about you ask Real Madrid about Olympiacos being the best non-NBA team outside?
Big Real Madrid fan, huh?
Yeah, huge. The one thing that me and Brenden actually don't agree on, and we'll see who's more right on things, is Brenden doesn't necessarily, I'll let Brenden speak for himself, but Brenden is a little bit higher on Sasha's potential fit here in Sacramento than I am. Brenden, I'm just curious, where are you? Are you still on that? Do you still believe that Sasha is somebody who can really impact things in a major way next season for Sacramento?
I think notably, and eventually you'll understand, Chris.
I'll come around to it.
No, but I just see a lot of Bielitsa type of impact, and not just that these guys are both EuroLeague MVPs. So that's an easy parallel to make, but I think in a way where it's a guy that, again, can finish plays at all three levels, and you don't really need creators in Sacramento's offense, right? It's extremely free-flowing. So if he finds a decent look from three, he's going to absolutely knock it down, and if defenses take that shot away, then that just opens up more space for Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and some of these other guys. If they close out hard, I think that he can attack and finish around the basket really well, good cuts. It's just going to be about surviving defensively, right? Which I think is a big question, a very big question. But there's aspects, you can ask yourself, if he has less offensive responsibility, can he be a little bit better than what we saw defensively? And I think that he had his moments staying fine on that end. I think there's going to be nights where offensively he can close games for you just because he is scoring the crap out of the ball that day. And I think he's that caliber of scorer, and Sacramento has the right guys to set him up. So you'll come around eventually, Chris.
I have to admit, I too have been a little bit of a Sasha skeptic because it's just kind of my nature. But that said, given, the small sample size of what I've seen of him, I mean, he can shoot and he plays off the ball so well that I agree with you, Brenden. It's you can see how he's easily going to fit into this offense. But as far as free agents now, what's your best guess of who, with this cap space, Monty McNair will actually target?
I mean, Kyle Kuzma feels like an easy answer here. A guy that, he is known to have tried to trade for before. I think Kuzma very much thought he was coming to Sacramento in that Buddy Hield deal and vice versa. But that's a guy that I think makes a lot of sense. I think that it's easy to forget that he was just a starter on a team that won a championship. And obviously LeBron and AD were the guys really carrying that team, but Kuzma played a pretty big role, and everybody knows what he can do offensively. I think he's really grown on that end in Washington, but he was a decent defender during that run that LA made to the finals, and that kind of got pointed out to me. And That's made me a little bit more optimistic about the idea of Kuzma, of course, all depending on what the number is there. But I think there's other intriguing options out there. Like Brook Lopez is a guy that I would consider.
Talk more.
I think I know you and your Lopez twins, right? I forgot about that. But no, I mean, I think that it's one of those, I feel like I say this all the time, but I'm very strong believer of don't get so caught up in cleaning up your weaknesses that you lose out on your strengths. Mm-hmm. And Brook Lopez is like walking that fine line there for me, where I don't really know which side I'm on. I think that he would help you tremendously on the defensive end, the rim protection you need, and he spaces the floor on offense. But I think there's just some connecting aspects that you might have to change your style a little bit more than you want to. Where I don't know that you can still have that same super free-flowing offense with Lopez not being the quickest decision maker, or at least having the same foot movement on cuts and off-ball, sort of pace in the half court that they talked about a lot, and even in the full court. And then defensively, Brook Lopez protecting the rim makes a lot of sense. But then does that mean Sabonis is then asked to guard fours in closing lineups, which I think is a tough scenario. I don't mind the idea of Jeremy Grant. And then there's smaller options, like a Grant Williams is somebody that intrigues me a little bit if you're going for a little bit of a cheaper option. So there's a lot of names out there, but only a few at the top, right?
Yeah, of course, I don't need to tell you if you're a Kings fan, great Kings coverage available from the Kings Herald. Of course, they got Jerry Reynolds on a podcast, and they got our guest, Brenden Nunes. Brenden, thank you so much. We appreciate your time very much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah, good answer.
Do better next time.
Good answer on the rabbit at the airport. Yeah, good job. He's right.
He's right. Yeah, no, the rabbit is part
of it. What about the luggage?
The luggage thing, yeah.